Alors, nous allons terminer notre voyage en nous arrêtant aux Philippines avec Madame Rachel Guimbatan-Fadgyas, excusez-moi pour la prononciation, qui est représentante du mouvement de sauvegarde des rizières en terrasse d'Ifugao aux Philippines. Elle va témoigner d'un élément essentiel qui est l'importance du sacré et des rites cultuels dans la gestion d'un système rizicole et des difficultés du maintien de ces usages qui sont pourtant indispensables pour avoir un développement équilibré d'une économie locale. Merci de votre témoignage.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting two of us from the Philippine Rice Terraces. Thank you. This one? Okay. The theme resonates with us because it makes sense of getting recognized as a heritage. It answers the question, okay, we get recognized, so what? I will present as a direct stakeholder, and so it will be a personal narrative. But for those who were not here yesterday, let me take you back to the Philippines again, to the Ifugao Rice Terraces. A quick orientation. The Ifugao Rice Terraces is located in the Cordillera Mountain region of northern Philippines. It was inscribed in the World Heritage List in 1995 as an outstanding example of an evolved living cultural landscape that traces back its origins to pre-colonial Philippines. I will speak a bit faster because I don't want to take you away from your lunch break. I'm sure the translators can manage. Since its listing as a World Heritage Site in danger in 2001, 6 years after its inscription as a World Heritage Site, many issues of the Ifugao Rice Terraces were raised. It had been analyzed for its outstanding value through the lenses of anthropology, ecology, and aesthetics. An Ifugao like me, born into it, who has seen how the rice terraces had been maintained, repaired, reshaped, replanted with other crops, and then revived as rice paddies, over the years that I grew up in those surroundings, could not relate to those views until I started to combine what I have always known with the eyes of my profession as an architect and an urban planner. I was a member of the planning team in 2003 that crafted the 10-year conservation and management plan of the Philippine Rice Terraces. We have seen and discussed the complexity of the problem. It cannot be solved by one approach. There were management approaches that respond to the biophysical landscape problems, to the weakening socio-cultural values, as well as to economic pressures. But overall, these approaches are underlined by the revitalization of our indigenous systems and practices. This again raises other questions. What is the point of reviving some of our dying rituals if they are not practiced according to their purpose? How do we sustain the rituals if the value of the rice crop to the community already has a price tag attached to it? In 2012, the Philippine Rice Terraces was removed from the list of sites in danger. Excuse me. How do I make this move? Oh. And in 2012, it was listed in the World Heritage Site in danger and has regained its status as a World Heritage Site. It doesn't mean that we have solved all our problems. Today, I will speak about a dimension of the problem which touches on the struggle of many terrace communities today to rise from poverty in a protected site that offers limited economic opportunities. Attempts to develop sustainable livelihoods are impacting on the practice of our rituals, which when performed these days are questioned by the local people and their authenticity. In our quest for sustainability, we are pressed by critical decisions. Are we going to continue to live in a hand-to-mouth existence to rationalize the authentic performance of our call to the gods that our harvest for the year would not come short? Or should we let the rituals evolve and adapt to our innovations on economic sustainability? Yesterday, my colleague Marlon presented the indigenous systems and practices that maintain the rice terraces, but let me elucidate the points I have just mentioned by presenting some of those systems once more. This is my heritage. It was developed by bare hands through knowledge and understanding of natural systems and collective effort. It is a structure that was not built in one day. It is a product of centuries of adaptation to changing environmental conditions. It was maintained with one goal in mind: to increase the capacity of the land to provide food for the family. Accompanying rituals have the same purpose: a miraculous increase of the rice yield. Oops. How do I get that? Okay, so isn't it beautiful? Yes, it is. But my forefathers did not build this structure for aesthetic reasons. They built it for survival reasons. It is being maintained today for the same reasons. Rice, being an annual crop, has shaped our agricultural calendar. In its entire life cycle, rituals are performed, calling on the gods to make the year's cropping better with more yield. After harvest, rituals are performed, calling on the gods to magically multiply the grains, and that the pots of the household will multiply the grains further, so that every stomach of the family will be filled and will not want more. Two main agricultural activities in a year were timed according to the life cycle of the crop. The first is field preparation, which starts after the harvest in the early part of August. The second is grain production, which starts with seed bedding in late November. The period of grain production is also called a period of shortage, because it is the time when the rice is being consumed from the granaries. We only have 4 to 5 months of abundance. Aesthetic-wise, the rice terraces do not look good during this period for tourism purposes. Our 8 months of shortage, on the one hand, showcases different stages and colors of the rice terraces and makes it more appealing to tourists. In 1995, the rice terraces were inscribed in the World Heritage List as Living Cultural Landscape. In its nomination dossier, it referred to it as the fruit of knowledge. A typical pragmatic Ifugao would just say, this fruit of knowledge was informed by the will to live and just make sense of a harsh environment that he was born into. Okay. So again, I take you back to the rice terraces. This is the Philippine Cordillera region in red. And Ifugao is located on the southwest of the Cordillera mountain range. We have 4 terrace clusters given World Heritage, or 5 terrace clusters given World Heritage status found in 4 towns. These are the 5 clusters. And there are differences among these 5 terrace clusters in terms of structure, the kind of rice that they prefer to plant, the land utilization, including the agricultural calendar. May I emphasize a concern that we have been facing on the management of the terrace clusters as a World Heritage Site. The yardstick that was always used to measure its management success keeps focusing on its physical attributes. Remedial measures, therefore, keep focusing on conserving its physical state. The fact that this is the summation of all knowledge systems aimed at sustaining the life of its inhabitants is often lost, even unreflected in official monitoring reports. What we have here is a heritage system. There are laws governing how land holdings are bequeathed to the next in line to ensure that it stays intact. It is also a cooperative system. Farmers help each other during different stages of the agricultural cycle. It's a land use system. We have indigenous systems of delineating core and buffer zones. It is a continuing conservation system. And in order to maintain the structure, these knowledge systems must continue. They are continued in the people who live in the site and who understand it most. There are realities that we face. 8 months of scarcity has made us hang on to supernatural powers. It has fine-tuned our knowledge of our natural environment to a degree that it became a belief system. It's a religion. While we have developed a culture of conservation brought about by a deep understanding of ecology, the absence of surplus did not condition us to capitalize on very few resources. Business concepts are even hard to grasp, so we have a poor business acumen. Instead, we have sustained our community spirit and our culture of sharing to neighbors in need. On the downside, there is generally a lower tolerance for individuals in the community who are becoming successful as business people. To a certain extent, making big profit is seen as exploitative and even selfish. Another reality is that the crop that we are marketing is our main food. It is not a side dish on the table, nor a beverage like tea or coffee or wine. It's not even an accessory that we can do without. It is important to us just as potato, corn, and wheat are important to other people. This is our daily bread. This being the case, considering the fact that we only can produce enough to feed ourselves, poses a major challenge for our crop to be a good heritization candidate. As a strategy to maintain the physical attributes of the rice terraces, engaging our farmers to plant the indigenous rice crop for selling changes the value of the crop in dictating the rituals to be performed, if they are to be performed at all. Will the prayers call on the gods to increase the rice yield so that we can have more cash? Will there be any prayer offered that would magically multiply the rice grains and make them heavier on the weighing scale so that we can have huge profits? There may be none at all, because our brains are not wired to call on the gods for these new needs. We do have local attempts to sell our rice. In 2001, or in 2005, there is a huge US-registered not-for-profit company embarked on marketing one of our rice varieties for fair trade. It partnered with a Philippine-based company who brought the grains for 50 pesos per kilo, or about $1.3 per kilogram. Their selling price in the US is $10 per kilogram. Since the terrace communities in our World Heritage sites that were willing to sell their crop could not produce large scale, the buyers also engaged rice farmers from outside Ifugao in the Cordillera region. They named the product heirloom rice, using the folk story of the Ifugao rice as its selling point. They named the product because the other provinces have wider rice fields and with better terrain. The expected rice yield from each square meter ranged from 4.5 kilograms to 6 kilograms. In our province, the rice yield ranged from less than 1 kilogram per square meter to 2.5 kilograms. The biggest landowner of a small-scale farmer owns a quarter of a hectare of farmland. So with that land area, it will likely get an average of 17,000 Philippine pesos, or roughly $570 for 8 months of production. This is below the annual capita poverty threshold in the Philippines. For a farmer who needs cash, this is probably acceptable. But if we factor in the labor input, it is not fair for a fair trade product. By the way, in the Ifugao province was declared the 7th poorest province in the Philippines. We have about 78 provinces in the country. Also, there is another big issue in this setup. Aside from dictating the price of the product, the buyers dictate the crop variety that they want to buy. Hence, terrace clusters lose crop diversity that is contrary to the nature of their cropping system. Because of the rice terraces, its heritage identity, also shared by 2 neighboring provinces in the marketing of their rice for fair trade, is active. There is a current promotional program of the Philippine government called One Town, One Product, or OTOP, that is aimed at promoting goods and products of Filipino towns and cities. One of our World Heritage Site towns in Ifugao selected the rice crop as their own product. With the heritage brand as an added value, they managed to produce a sizable volume of the rice crop last year, but the expected buyers canceled their order because they said that they have the same variety from the 2 provinces, so there's no need. So in this case, there's no legal framework to protect the identity of our product. There is also a nicer story. And I was witness to this. This town, located on the lowland area of the province, has selected the tilapia fish as their own product for that program. When they participated in a national trade fair, I was there, and they arranged their booth or store in a manner that displayed all the fishes and the packaged fishes at the front, and at the backdrop is a big picture of the rice terraces, and underneath that is a huge sack of the indigenous rice variety, so that when people pass by, they would say, "Did these fishes come from the rice terraces?" And the sellers would say, "Yes, the water that came from the rice terraces watered the ponds where these fishes swam." So all the fishes were sold out, even the rice that was displayed there as a decoration. There are also factors beyond our control. One is the extreme changes in the climate that damage our annual cropping for the year or each year. In 2010, many small-scale farmers lost their crop due to El Nino. In the past 6 years, the rice terraces suffered serious damages caused by landslide. The province of Ifugao ranks 3rd as the most vulnerable province to combined climate and weather-related risks. It is also the top province at high risk to earthquake-induced landslides. We do not have titles to our own farmlands. We have a national law called Revised Forestry Code of the Philippines that says no land of the public domain 18% in slope or over shall be alienable and disposable for agriculture and settlement. The rice terraces belongs to this indisposable and inalienable category. Well, we do have a law called the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act to grant protection rights for indigenous peoples and ancestral domains. The process has been slow for land titling. So we lack that potent tool to secure our own lands and our management rights to increase its land value. So how did we respond to all these challenges? Through educational tourism. We call this the rice cycle tours. We package tours that bring in tourists to participate in the different stages of the agricultural cycle. When it's time for weeding, we would call on them to weed with us, clean the rice terraces. When it's time to repair the stone walls, we invite them to carry those stones and learn how to set up those dry stone walls. When it's time to plant, we invite them to transplant those seeds with us, those seedlings with us. When it's time to drive the pest away, we also invite them to watch or participate. When it's time to harvest, we invite them to come and harvest with us and then celebrate in the prestige feast. In 2013, the gross revenue from this type of tourism was 1.69 million pesos, or about 38,000 US dollars, or roughly 33,500 euros for one terrace cluster. And you divide it with the number of small-scale hold farmers, this is about 3 to 4 times what they get if they sell the rice. So on top of that, they get to, the rice remains with them to feed their own families. Aside from the rice cycle tourism, we have also promoted non-rice-based products such as handicrafts, hand-woven textiles, blacksmith items, coffee, and other local delicacies as main products of our town. With the regular educational tourism tours conducted by our organization's volunteers, forgotten rituals are being revived. Here is the ritual invoking a deity for our priest, promoting him to a level where he can perform rice rituals. These strategies were offshoots and were also sustained and reinforced by a project we started in 2006 and concluded in 2013, where we work on the transmission of indigenous knowledge through formal and informal means. We partnered with the Department of Education for the production of information or instructional materials at the elementary level. We partnered with the Commission on Higher Education for the development of instructional materials at the tertiary level. And our own NGO handled the informal transfer of knowledge through this educational tourism. And to reach out to the younger generation who are outside the province and outside the Philippines, we maintain a website where we post our own narratives. That is still a work in progress. This is not one of the inscribed rice terraces, but it is a part of the urban town of Banawe, Ifugao, which is also host to 2 rice terrace clusters that were inscribed in the heritage list. Parts of what used to be a terraced area has been converted to accommodate bigger houses. This is partly due to the impacts of mass tourism, but it's also partly our own way of expressing that we are transitioning to a better level of development. But to be honest, this is really the phase of underdevelopment. Can we say that this landscape is beautiful? Probably not. It has been criticized by many conservation experts and tourists. Yet underneath this exterior of a landscape still lies a strong rice culture with priests performing traditional rituals servicing many areas of the town. I belong to the generation of Ifugaos who underwent this rapid transition from the scarce communication tools of my own community to today's touch screen technology. My own hometown jumped from one telegraph service office to individual internet connections. 20 years ago, we only had one telephone in town to connect us to the outside world. That distance today is closed by our mobile devices. We are barely above subsistence economy in an existing global market economy. The continuity of our knowledge systems will probably be redefined and decided by my own generation. But I believe that these ancient systems and rituals led by our indigenous priests and knowledge holders will continue for as long as the rice crop remains for its own purpose as a limited resource, fostering a culture of cooperation and sharing, and even a culture of conservation. I can only hope that we are doing it right. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rachel Guimbatan-Fadgyas, for your presentation of the Rice Terraces. In your introduction, you have said that you were born into it. So we have understood how this presentation is presented by somebody who is living within this site. And thank you for presenting all those challenges that you are facing and how you are trying to face this transformation. So thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.